Did you know there was once a law so effective that it had to be demonized to keep it out? Not banned, not debated, demonized. Today, most people associate this law with fear, punishment, and extremism. But that image didn't come from how the law actually worked. It came from what the law threatened. Because this wasn't a system built on power, conquest, or domination. It was a system built on something far more dangerous to empires: accountability. This law was called Sharia. And to understand why it was feared, we need to forget modern headlines and look at how it actually functioned. Let us begin from looking at what this law really regulated. When people hear Sharia, they think of criminal punishments. But that was never its core. The majority of this legal system dealt with contracts, courts, leadership conduct, public responsibility, welfare, economic fairness. In other words, it wasn't obsessed with crime. It was obsessed with how power behaves. Who can rule? Who can judge? Who can exploit? Who can escape consequences? And most importantly, who cannot? Now let's look at the so-called radical part of the system. The most radical idea in this system was also the simplest. The law applies equally, not symbolically, not theoretically, in practice. Rulers appeared in court as defendants. Judges were not appointed to protect authority. They were appointed to restrain it. Status did not excuse wrongdoing. Power did not erase evidence. Wealth did not buy exemption. There are recorded cases of leaders losing legal disputes to ordinary citizens. Not rebels, not elites, ordinary people. And the verdicts were enforced. That single principle alone made this system incompatible with empire. Now the question arises, why this law terrified power? Empires survive on predictability. Predictable obedience, predictable privilege, predictable immunity. This law destroyed that. Because once leaders can be punished, corruption becomes risky. Once judges are independent, exploitation becomes expensive. Once wealth circulates, control weakens. This is why foreign observers of the time wrote in disbelief. They described leaders with no palaces, no bodyguards in court, no legal shields. To them, this wasn't admirable. It was unstable. Because a system that restrains its own rulers cannot be controlled from the outside. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Power doesn't fear violence. It understands violence. Power fears justice. Violence can be crushed. Justice spreads. You can defeat armies, but you cannot defeat an idea that exposes privilege. A population that believes the law protects them doesn't need surveillance. A society that trusts its courts doesn't fear authority. And a ruler who can be punished cannot rule through intimidation. That kind of order is dangerous to systems built on hierarchy and immunity. Hence, the image of this law was broken in the following fashion. The system wasn't challenged directly, it was redefined. Only the harshest punishments were highlighted. The welfare systems were ignored. The courts were erased from discussion. The economic safeguards were forgotten. Culture was confused with law. Politics was confused with religion. Over time, the word no longer described a legal system. It described a threat. And once an idea is feared, it no longer needs to be understood. History shows a pattern. Any system that limits elite immunity, forces transparency, equalizes accountability will always be labeled dangerous, extreme, unworkable, not because it fails, but because it works on the wrong people. Justice is only praised when it punishes the weak. The moment it reaches upward, it becomes unacceptable. This isn't about claiming perfection. No system is flawless. The real question is simpler and far more unsettling. Why was a system that punished the powerful feared more than systems that didn't? History doesn't reject justice. Power does. And that is why some laws are not debated. They are demonized.